Well, thank you for having me.
Oh, absolutely. I'll tell you, I've been talking about this a lot the last couple of weeks, and I told everybody how you've had. It seems like the last 4 shows you attempted to be on, something happened. So
yeah, something weird happened.
Tonight. Yeah. So how you doing tonight, Steve?
Oh, pretty good. I guess it's UFO day, so we got through tonight, huh?
That's right. Steve, I guess let me start out with, I'll ask you, what has life been like since that night in 1975 when you and the others had your lives, I would guess, changed forever? What has it been like since then?
I've been asked that question before, and it's been my life, my whole life. So I really can't tell you with any difference because I was 17 when it happened, and I've seen UFOs before this happened. So it's been my whole life. I've tried to get out of it a few times, but they seem like this to drag me right back in. So
yeah,
I went a long time without talking about it. I went 35 years without talking to Travis, and I went over the road, and I had some things that happened to me over the road. And when I broke my neck, that's when they wanted me to get back into it and started talking to my wife and my kid, and they think this is important for me to get back in it and start talking about it. So I got back in it a couple years ago and got a hold of Travis, and besides, I want my side of the story told too, because I've read these articles that they've written years ago, and they're wrong. They said they talked to me. I only done one interview 35 years ago, and it was on July the 7th, 1976. It was the day my son was born, and we was at the hospital when National Star had me trapped, and I couldn't get outside because I usually ran and hid, and they couldn't catch me. I got good at hiding, and they had all the doors trapped, and I couldn't get away. So I did an interview, and then the next month when it came out, it made us look like we were lying. So I never did another interview for 35 years. But if you don't get out and talk about it and tell your side of the story, they will make things up and put things in there. They said you said this and said that, So if you don't get out there and talk about it, they will put words in your mouth.
Oh, absolutely. If you don't tell your story, then somebody else is going to tell it with their twist. That's for sure. And I agree with your family. It is important. I mean, you had an experience that not very many people, well, a lot of people, have had, I guess. But when you look at the whole population as a whole, not many people have experienced it. And, I'll tell you, I'm glad you're out talking.
There's nobody but 6 people who's ever seen what we saw. Nobody's ever seen what we saw. Even Travis didn't see that coming. I don't believe Travis saw it coming,
Hey, Steve, if you wouldn't mind, fill us in on your account of what happened that day. I mean, right from the start, you get up for work, you head out. You couldn't have possibly thought your day would end the way it did.
Well, I was working with Mike Rogers. We was trimming trees for the forest department and for fire protection. And we were behind on the contract because my uncle and cousin and another guy just quit. So we were short-handed. And that day that we went out, John Gillette and Dwayne Smith, they just hired on a couple of days before, so we was trying to work some overtime to get caught up because we only got paid if we only got so much section done from the forest department. And that morning, it was like a regular day. I went to work, and Alan Dallas and Travis Walton were fighting again, like always, and were arguing. And everybody was doing this kung fu fighting back then. It was a big thing back then, and I thought it was kind of funny. But Alan Dallas tried to do a roundhouse, and because him and Travis was into it, and Alan Dallas tried to do a roundhouse, and he fell on his butt and never touched Travis, and we all laughed about it, and he got kind of mad, and Mike kind of broke it up and said, just get in the truck and let's go. So we all got in the truck and we took off, and we was working for the day, and then when the during that day that Alan Dallas had cut a tree, what I did was I stacked the branches into piles so the forest department can burn it, safety burn, and
right.
So I was dragging some logs down and some trees down, and now you always got to look up because trees are falling. And I looked up and I noticed that Alan Dallas had cut down a tree, and it landed real close to Travis. And I figured, oh, cool, another fight's going to start, And then I think Mike hollered out lunch or something like that, and Travis just gave him a dirty look, and nothing really happened out of it. And so we took a lunch, and then we all loaded up for the day, and it was getting dark, so we had to quit because when it get dark out in the woods, it's dark. And so we loaded up and was in a two-seated pickup truck, and Travis was on a shotgun side, and Kenny Peterson was in the middle, and then Mike Rogers was driving, and then behind in the back seat was Alan Dallas was next to the window behind Travis and me, and then John Gillette and then Dwayne Smith was on the far left behind Mike, and so we started taking off, and we noticed this bright light over to the right of us, and we couldn't figure out what it was, and someone said, looks like the moon, and then one of the other guys said that, the moon's over there, there's the moon. And then we got a little bit closer, and Alan Dallas said, looks like a spaceship, and so he kind of like hits the floorboard, and he gets back up, and then I scoot over all the way next to the window, and I get a real close view, and we turn around this curve, and there it is. It's just hovering in the air in this clearing. And it's right below the tree lines. It's close enough where you could throw a rock at it and hit it. And it's just hovering there, and it's not moving. This thing is beautiful. It was solid white, and you could see the window frames coming down from it. And then there's a frame like in the middle of it. It was like two cake pans on top of each other, but it was solid white. I mean, it was a glowing white. And some reason Mike stops, and Travis gets out, and to me, it looks like he was like in a trance when he got out, and like he was hypnotized or something, and because it didn't like it was Travis, and Travis starts walking up to it like cannon quarter, like sideways up to it, not straight up, but in an angle, and he gets so far from it, and he's not underneath it like it shows in the movie dancing. That's not true. But anyway, everybody's hollering him to come back, and then he kind of like ducks down in between some trees, and when he stands back up, and he only looked back once, and the way he looked when he looked back, I know his eyes were different. This is like, and so this thing, he stands back up, and it starts rocking back and forth, going beep, 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 beep. And there was this high pitching noise to it, and then this bluish green light came out and zapped him in the chest, and he falls back he's in the air, and he goes back in the air. It's not like in the movie it picks him up and then throws him. It's more like it hits him, and he flies back about 15 feet, and he hits the ground. And as soon as he hits the ground, I say they got him. As soon as I said they got him, Mike takes off. And for a second there, I didn't know Mike took off until I hit my head on the door, on the door because it was bouncing and stuff. And when we get down the road, and Kenny Peterson and Mike and gets him to stop, and we stop, and we get out, and everybody's all, let's just go. Some of us wanted to go, and Kenny Peterson and John Gillette were saying that, we have to go back and look for him. We got to turn around and go back and look for him. And a couple of guys wanted to know, that should we go get help and come back and look for him, or what should we do? And as we was getting out, we saw a white light take off into the sky, so we thought it was gone. And so, and then someone said it looked like he was disintegrated, and I said, no, I seen him hit the ground. His body's there. I seen him hit the ground. So we all get in the pickup, and, you know, in the movie it shows that Mike went back by himself. That's not true. We all got back in the pickup because you wasn't going to leave us out there by ourselves. And there's no way one of us would have went back by ourselves to look for him. And everybody was going to stick with that pickup no matter where it went. Where that pickup went is where, you know, where we went. Because I was staying with that pickup until I got home. And that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to go home. I wanted to go back to Snowflake and see the city lights, you know, or the town lights. And because I was only a kid. I was 17 years old. And so Henry Thomas plays my part in the movie. And if you ever watched the sci-fi Paranormal Witness, they have done the best job. If you ever watch that, the first one was an hour and a half long, and the after that was an hour and a half, but because it's only an hour show. But they done the best one I've seen so far. I will go 90% of that's right, you know. So we turned around and we went back and looked for him, and we couldn't find him. And we had one flashlight, and we're looking around, and I'm thinking we're not in the right spot. And so I'm looking for tracks where the pickup took off. And then I found the tracks, and I said, well, I guess we're in the right place. And we looked and looked, and we couldn't find him. Now we're deciding what to do. Should we go home, go back to town, and get some friends of ours to come back out and look for him? And Kenny Peterson and John Gillette, they wanted to call the cops, and me and Alan Dallas, we were against it because, you know, the ones in the back seat were the outlaws. We were the non-Mormons in town, and we lived in a Mormon community, and they didn't like us anyway. So we went into town, and Mike, when we was looking for him, he really got upset, and he fell to his knees and said, you know, I left my best friend behind. Look what I've done, you know. And he was really upset. So when we got back into town, he was still upset. So Kenny Peterson called the sheriff's department. Told, you know, we pulled into a parking lot, and there was 3 telephone booths in the parking lot. So I think there was 3 or 2 or something like that. But Kenny Peterson called the sheriff's department and told the sheriff's department we had a missing persons. He didn't tell them the whole story until Gillespie got out there. And then when Gillespie got out there, everybody started telling the story what happened and stuff. And he's looking around for beer cans and stuff. He thinks this is all nothing but a hoax, and he still does. If you watch the sci-fi, the Paranormal Witness, he's on there too, and he still believes to this day this was nothing but a hoax. And so we tell him what happened, and he says, well, Mike has to go back because he's the crew boss, and I want 2 other guys to go back, and the other 3 can go home. So Alan Dallas and Kenny Peterson went back to look for him, and me, John Gillette, and Dwayne Smith, we went home. And I finally got to go home. So they went out and looked for him, and they couldn't find him. He was still missing. And so the next morning, they got a posse, like an 80-man, 100-man posse out there looking for him. And they went to everybody's house to pick him up to go out there. And when my mom was talking to these people out front, I snuck out the back door and I hid all day at a girlfriend's house because I figured, we was going to get out there and they was going to find Travis dead. And there's no way you were going to be able to run from 100 cops. You're surrounded. Because John Gillette told me that when he got out there, they had a cop by each one of them. A cop stayed by each one of them. They were telling him, you might as well confess, tell us what really happened because we're going to find this body out here. And so they didn't find the body. And that I stayed hid all day at a girlfriend's house, and her mom came home for work and said that I'm in the bedroom, and she says that you got to stay away from that Pierce boy. The whole town thinks that they killed Travis, and Travis's body's out there somewhere. So she left to work, and she still let me stay the rest of the day until her mom came home. Then I stayed hid until it got dark because but by this time there was so many news reporters looking to get a story. You know, they within that 5 days there were so many people up there that it doubled the town. And
wow.
Yes, it was bad. And they were beating on my door, looking through my windows, taking pictures, and you know, I never got a piece of sleep. You know, I didn't get hardly no sleep for 5 days. Even after that, it was hard to get, you know, because. Well, anyway, so all that week, you know, the whole town thinks we killed him, and then. I seen one of the city cops, and he caught me and put me in the back of his car and told me, you know, you might as well confess. We don't think you killed him, but we think you're covering it up. We don't know why you're covering it up, but in Arizona we don't need a body, and if you're involved in this, you're just as guilty as the person who killed Travis. So if I was you, I would confess and tell us what really happened, and it would be easier on you. Well, I told him, I said, well, you know, it's true. What we were telling you is true. So he lets me out of the cop car, and he rolls down the window and says, well, when you're ready to tell the truth, call me, and, you know, and I'll help you out. And so he left, and so he left, and then he started talking about taking a polygraph test. And so I didn't want to take a polygraph test. I didn't like cops, and I'm a long-haul truck driver, and I'm still not too friendly with them. You know, I just say yes, sir, no, sir, and go down the road, you know. And so Alan Dallas's mom was telling us that you know, they're going to set this up and make us all look like we're guilty. You know, so they set the polygraph test up, and I didn't want to take a polygraph test. So the morning of the polygraph test, I snuck out the back door again, and they were waiting on me, and they put me in my mom's car, and my mom took me to the Holbrook where the sheriff's department was at, and my mom was, you know, she had to take me. I was a minor, and plus she was kind of curious if we killed Travis or not, you know.
Yeah.
So we get there, and there's all kinds of news reporters there. There was just tons of them, cameras everywhere, and so they get us inside the office, and the guy taking the polygraph test, he comes out there, and he, you know, tells him who he is and everything, and what kind of questions he's going to ask, and that's when we realized this ain't about a missing person. This is about murder, you know, because they're asking us questions if we killed Travis or not, and they took me first because they figured I would crack under the pressure because I was the youngest one. So they figured I would just crack and would never, you know, finish taking the polygraph test. I would just confess. Well, I walked in there, and they strapped me down and everything, and I was really nervous. I thought I was going to flunk it because I was so nervous. And they asked me if I did body harm to Travis. Is Travis buried out there? Do I know who did body harm to Travis? And one of the other questions was, did we actually see a UFO? And I passed it. Well, I took the polygraph test. He didn't tell us at first if we passed or not. He just finished it, and they made us wait out in this place that was fenced off outside. And then I was the first one out there, and then another one would come out, and then another one. They kept us separated until everybody took the polygraph test. And then Alan Dallas took his polygraph test, and they asked him if he killed Travis, and he got all upset and says, "Why are you asking me these questions?" You know, and he ripped off the stuff they put on him. You know how they strap him down the fingers and stuff. You know, and he took everything off and said, "You know, I'm not taking this." So his came inconclusive, and so he didn't finish his polygraph test. But he did take one in '93 from the same guy and pass it. So he did pass the polygraph test, but he didn't finish this one. Well, everybody took the polygraph test, and he's about to leave, and we kept asking, well, did we pass it? He said, well, I want to talk to a couple other people first before I tell you guys. Finally, he said, yeah, y'all passed it. And then they told Gillespie that we passed it, and Gillespie couldn't believe it. They passed the polygraph test because Gillespie knew we were going to flunk it. that's why he wanted us to take the polygraph test. He just knew that we wasn't going to pass his polygraph test. Well, they let us go, and we went home, and Travis was still gone. And the next day, I'm hiding from the news reporters and stuff, and I came home that night, and my mom says, Travis is back. He's in Tucson. And everybody thinks he's in the Tucson hospital, but actually he was at his brother's house in Phoenix. He just told people that. And then when Travis called his brother that night, to talk to him, then when they came and went and got him, the operator, because in those days you had a phone booth, you had to go through an operator to get hooked up, So the operator had called the sheriff's department and told the sheriff's department that Travis was back, and that's how Gillespie knew he was back. And so we didn't see Travis for 3 weeks after that. And we all met at Mike's house. We all met at Mike's house. Well, my mom didn't want me to be going around him because the people in town thought we were, because it turned out to be a big joke afterwards. People, were saying, I made this up because because Mike was behind us on his contract and everything, and so about 3 weeks or so went by, and Travis came back up there, and he told us the story, and of course we believed him. We saw the first part, and then after that, I stayed away from all. I got married that following February to another woman, and I didn't even invite him to the wedding. I didn't invite nobody that I worked with to the wedding because I was trying to stay away from them all, because the whole town turned it into a big joke. It was hard to get a job, and people thought we were nuts, or we were just making this up, and we just conned the police department. Well, how do you pass a polygraph test? How does all these people at one time pass the same polygraph test? I mean, that's kind of hard to do. And
yeah, exactly. And
even
too bad you guys didn't have the old cell phone cameras back in '75.
I got an email the other day that says, how come you didn't use the CB? We didn't have a CB in the truck. We didn't have nothing in that pickup. We only had one flashlight to look for Travis. We were all following Mike around, and I made sure I was in the middle. I had guys behind me and guys in front of me. I stayed in the middle. And we only had one flashlight looking for Travis. We didn't have cell phones back then. We didn't have, all the stuff that we have nowadays, it came afterwards. There was no internet. There was no, so.
Yeah.
The world was a little bit different back then.
Absolutely. Hey, Steve, hang on for a moment. We've got to take a break, and then we'll come back and continue. Fascinating story. I've heard Travis's interviews before. I've heard his accounts, and it's nice to hear from the other guys. I believe me, I think we should hear from all of them, because this is just a fascinating, true story. I don't care what anybody says. You can't tell me any different. I absolutely believe it. And, we're going to get into it a little deeper when we return. This is Late Night in the Midlands on the LNM Radio Network. And maybe a little later in the show here we might take some calls. But right now I'm going to be a little greedy. So we'll be back, everyone. Once again, this is Late Night in the Midlands, and we will be back. Internet nowadays. Can you imagine what it was like? And this is 1975 in that town. What kind of how they were treated by the other residents and people of that town. I mean, nowadays you could tell a story like this, and you're always going to get your hecklers. But for the most part, there's not too many people who aren't going to open their ear to something like this. But in '75, it was a whole other ball game. So I can only imagine. So I guess I'll ask Steve, and I'm sure that it wasn't pleasant, but it had to be crazy in those 5 days. What was the reaction of the town and even the people close to you?
It was crazy. You got that right. I got brothers that still don't believe the story. Thinks we're all lying. You know, and so, and I'm just glad we passed the polygraph test, because we wouldn't have never left that building if we hadn't passed the polygraph test, because they were about to lock us all up for murder.
And you had to have been concerned that you had to have been concerned that they were going to, you know, folly up the test in some way, make you look guilty. I mean, that's the first thing I would think.
Yeah, well, that's what we were all thinking. That's what we were all thinking, that they were going to do that to us, make us look guilty.
So then, okay, so Travis then, he gets home, you all took lie detector tests, and you passed, and then after that, what happened? I mean, did it die down anytime soon, or were you still being harassed?
I was being harassed for, well, that following July, National Star caught me at the hospital, and then after that, I went back into hiding again. After the next month, they came back out and, you know, made us look like we were lying. And so I just got tired of Arizona and all the, you know, the crap we was going through. And I went back home to Texas. I went back to Texas where I was from. And well, before that, I got married and I moved to Taylor. Taylor is a town next is next to Snowflake, and the city cop named Jim Click of Taylor, he came to my door one day and said that Philip Plath called him and said that he'd give me $10,000 if I said it was a hoax. And well, at the time I just blew it off, and I always thought, you know, Philip Plath was just a news reporter. You know, so I just thought, you know, he was looking for a story. So I just blew it off and didn't think nothing of it. And then when I moved to Texas, he found out where I lived in Texas and found out my phone number. And because, you know, if you get a home phone back then, you know, they put your phone number in the phone book and everything. And and I was going by Jeff then. You know, I still went by Steve, but everything I had, you know, you got to go what's on your driver's license. And so I couldn't figure out how he was finding me until a couple of years ago. I found some old papers that the original copies of the polygraph test, and that I dug up a bunch of other stuff up, some old copies of a bunch of other stuff, and I noticed on there that they had my real name, you know, not my real name, but my whole name. It said Jeff S. Pierce on there, and then I realized, well, yeah, that's how he must have found out what my first name was, because back then I thought they only knew me as Steve, but on the polygraph test it says my whole name. And he was calling me out there telling me, you know, I'll give you $10,000. You say this is a hoax and everything. And one night I hung up the phone and I told my ex-wife, I said, you know, I'm just going ahead and take this money. You know, everybody thinks we're lying anyway. You might as well take the money. We can use the money. And then she says, well, do you really believe this happened? And I said, you know, I believe it happened. I was there. I saw it. So why are you going to sell yourself out for $10,000 when you know this is true? Just because I was mad at Mike Rogers because he hadn't paid me for the job, and then after that I got a side job and he took it from me. So I was really mad at Mike, and I was mad at Travis for a few other things, and you know, putting things in the book that he didn't ask me about to put in the book. And the last time I saw Travis was we took a group picture, and then we took a separate pictures with a hard hat on, and he bought a brand new hard hat, but it was just one hard hat everybody's wearing. If you look at his book, you know, you see all of us in the book wearing the hard hat. We're all wearing the same hard hat, and I told him, I said, you know, I don't want to wear this hard hat. We didn't wear them at work, you know. So he said, well, you either wear it or you're not in the book. He must have told me about that. He must have told me that 20 times. I'll keep you out of the book. So I put the hard hat on, and so he then he wanted me to sign some papers saying that he can put my name in the book, and then I didn't see him or see a book for 35 years. I thought, you know, I was staying out of this, and then when I moved to Texas, I didn't talk to them, and I figured it was Travis that was sending you know, like I thought it was Travis that was telling Philip Prass where I was at, but it wasn't, because he didn't like Philip Prass. Well, see, I always thought Philip Prass was a news reporter. So when he was calling me, offering me this money, I figured he was just going to get it from the news, from the newspaper, because I thought he worked for a newspaper. And so I was going to take the money. And one night he calls again, and my ex-wife's not home, and I says, okay. And Philip Prass is the only one I ever said it was a hoax to. And the only thing I said was, okay, this didn't happen. How do I get the money? Well, he flew to Texas, and I met him at a restaurant, and he's a really nice. He was a really nice guy until you start talking about Travis and UFOs. And did you know who Philip Prass was?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so
that was actually some of my questions I had tonight, is about him and why he wanted to cover it up.
Well, I think it had something to do with the FBI, because Travis dug up some stuff about him that I guess he was doing things for the FBI. That's why I understand. And where else would he was going to get this kind of money if he didn't work for a news? So I'm not sure. This part I don't know nothing about, because when I met him, I thought he worked for a newspaper, and he was very nice to me until you started talking about Travis, and he got really, and what I remember the mostly that he was a chain smoker, and back then you could smoke in restaurants, it wasn't no big deal like it is nowadays, and so we were sitting there and we're talking, and he said, well, I told him, well, how do I get this $10,000? I want the money. Tell me how to get it. He said, well, you're gonna have to go back to Arizona and find a generator or something. And I told him, I said, man, you're going to need a big generator. You're going to need more than one generator, or it's going to have to be an awful big one, because that light was so bright that there's no one little generator is going to work, So we talked for a while, and he didn't even buy me lunch or nothing. Usually they bought me lunch, the people who talked to me, wanted to talk to me, would buy me something, So he went in separate ways, and after that, I went back home, and a couple nights later, I told my ex-wife what I did, and she, I'm not going to take this money. If you get this money, this is wrong. You shouldn't be doing this. Your day will come. Your day will come. Just because they're cheating you out of what happened now, and you don't like what's in the book, and you're mad at Mike, your day will come. And so I stopped voiding his calls, and I got a job in Utah, in Moab, and I got a job, and then one day I was at work, somebody called. This part I don't know if it was him or not. Somebody called and said they wanted to talk to me about an incident that happened in Arizona, so I figured it was him. And after the job was done, we went back to Phoenix, and me and her got divorced, and I was staying at a brother's house, and Philip Prass found out my brother and his wife's phone number, and started calling them, and telling him, I'd give him this money if he says this is a hoax and all this, and I finally had to tell my brother and sister-in-law who he was and what he wanted, and wanted me to say it was a hoax, but I couldn't do it. This really happened. And I really wanted the money, because I was only going to do it for the money in the first place. But then, people telling me, if this really happened, you really shouldn't take this money because it ain't right. So after that, I rode trains for a long time and stayed away from everybody. I became a hobo and couldn't learn how to deal with this, and because it was just so, it really freaked me out, and then I seen a UFO on a train once, and seen some aliens, and then after that I I straightened up, stopped drinking, and went to Mississippi and got my CDLs and started driving long haul. And I drove across country for 20-something years before I broke my neck. And when I broke my neck, that's when I didn't even know they made a movie. I was in a truck stop. You know, people say, well, you made money off the movie. I didn't make a dime off this movie. I was in a truck stop, and I just got loaded. I was in Barstow, California, and I was heading back to New Orleans, and I went and paid for the fuel, and I weighed the wagon and paid for the fuel, and I went to use the restroom, and then on the way out, I walked to the TV room and see if anybody was going to drive for the rest of the night, and there was Travis Walton on HBO talking about the movie, and that's how I knew they made a movie about the most scariest night of my life, you know. And I was a day and a half early for my load. When I left there, I never stopped. I stayed awake all the time. You know. And then I still didn't watch the movie until 2008. So the movie was already out for a long time before I even watched it. And I was after I broke my neck, I was at home, and my daughter and my wife, we rented the movie, and I told my daughter, I says, Henry Thomas, that's me, that kid there, he's playing my part. And my kids, well, if that's you, how come they didn't use your real name? And I said, I don't know. And so that's when I got a hold of Travis, and Travis got a hold of, you know, I got a hold of Travis, and I started talking to Travis, and then that's when he wanted me to come out and started talking about Philip Plath and everything, and I'm not the one who brung Philip Plath up in the first place. It was Mike Rogers. Mike Rogers came out 20-something years ago saying that he's going to kick my ass, and well, he'd try to kick my ass. Well, anyway, if I took that money, and that's how it all started about Philip Plath, you know, because everybody found out that I was going to take this money, and it really pissed Mike off, and so he brung it out. He's the one that brung it all out because I wouldn't say nothing to nobody. And then when I got a hold of Travis, and he wanted to know more about what me and Philip Plath happened to Philip Plath, and he wanted me to come out and start talking about it, and I really didn't want to come out and talk about it because people think you're nuts, and you know, if I walked in, you know, going to these conferences I've been going to the last couple of years, the people that come to the conferences, the majority of them believe. You know, we've had some, you know, wisecrackers. We did one. Me and Travis did one with Travis in New Mexico a few months ago, and some drunk lady got up, and she was drunk and started saying, you know, this is a bunch of crap. Y'all are lying, and you know, found that they had to, you know, escort her out. But majority of the people, and it's like therapy. It's good because people believe you, and you know, and it's different than it was back then. But if I walked into a 7-Eleven or a Circle K and told that person behind that counter my story, they would just look at me like I was nuts, because people can't deal with this. They cannot deal with the fact that there might be somebody out there. Some people has to do with their religion belief, you know, how they were brought up, but the people who believe, and the people who don't believe, they're the ones that's really hard on you. The ones who don't believe are really hard on you. And I
want to point something out to the listeners. I mean, here's a guy who was down on his luck, could have very easily have taken the $10,000 and, you know, helped him and his family, and he didn't. He didn't do it. He kept his hardship, and he stood honorable. And my hat's off to you for that, Steve, because, you know, 100 people put in that position, probably 99 of them would have took the money. I mean, you know,
I have to admit, I came awful close to taking the money. But it was just about the money. You know, nobody believed us. After Travis came back, it turned out to be a big joke. We couldn't even get a job, and people thought we were nuts. So I went back to Texas, and where nobody knew about the story, and I didn't tell nobody. You know, even when me and my wife I have now, that we've been together for like 17 years, and I did not tell her until after we got married. She didn't know about this until after we got married, because I was afraid that she thought I was crazy. And then even afterwards, she would tell me, don't we go to these people's houses, don't bring the story up because they think you're nuts. So don't talk about it. So for a long time I didn't tell people. So
right.
I was even married a short time. One time, I think it was my third wife, maybe my second. I don't know. I lost count there. But anyway, I didn't even tell her that. She didn't even know about the story. I never even told her, and we were married. Because some people, the people who don't believe, really have a hang up about it. They think this is all either, this is demonic. This is from the devil. What you said, what you've seen was evil, and you must be evil.
I know.
Or you're just a flat out liar, and if you lied about this, you will lie about this, and you'll lie about that. If you already lied to me once, you told me you saw a UFO, and that's a lie. So you must be lying about this. You must be lying about that. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
it's a trip. I mean, my whole life has been.
Steve, I've dealt with those kind of people who, they tell me, oh, they're fallen angels, they're demons, they're this, and the fact is, we really don't know who or what it is. We just know that it's. I mean, I've had UFO sightings before, and my last one, Steve, was several months ago, and this thing, I mean, it was just brilliant lights. It was tubular shaped, and there was 4 of them, and these things were glowing like a fluorescent orange and had a fine, bright white light coming out of the back, no noise, no nothing, and just kind of floating its way across the sky. And, I've been looking to see if anybody else reported it here in Columbia, and it was another case where, if I could have got up on a couple ladders, I may have been able to hit it with something. I mean, it was huge. And, people who just think that this is a bunch of baloney, I feel so sorry for them. I mean, they must feel so alone to think that we're the only ones in this universe. I mean, this is a real phenomenon, and I'll tell you, it just fascinates me.
And I believe also that I could be standing with somebody next to me, and I could see a UFO, but he can't. So if they want you to see it, you will see it. If they don't want you to see it, you're not going to see it. And I believe
that's right. Yeah.
Yeah,
I do too.
And my wife, she didn't see one for years until we went to a conference in California in January, and then on the way back, we had 3 that stayed right beside us all the way home. And we drove from L.A. all the way up to Utah. So there's a lot of spaces out there that, and it ain't like they just, like an airplane. When an airplane would just go by and you won't see it, eventually they'd be gone. They stayed 3 of them stayed right beside us all the way home. All the way home. They just followed us. My wife was always saying, I finally got to see one. I got to see 3 at the same time.
Well, in Phoenix, Arizona seems to be a hot spot, too, for this type of phenomena, because it wasn't long ago the Phoenix Lights, that big, huge mothership-type object that came through the sky that everybody's seen. I mean, so much goes on, and people still deny it. I mean, hundreds of thousands of witnesses, and yet people say, no, it was flares or it was atmospheric phenomena. Baloney. That's not what it is. So,
well, it's not what it is, but you got these non-believers that they're so scared that oh no, God. What about God?
Yeah.
God
Exactly.
created the earth, and we're the only people in the universe.
Right, and they don't want to believe that there could have been others created, and by whoever, I don't know, but they're out there. There's no doubt about it. Steve, how's your relationship with Travis and the rest of the guys today? How's everything going now?
Well, I didn't see none of them for 35 years. I still haven't seen Mike Rogers because we were feuding the last time we talked to each other, and he still owes me money. And Kitty Peterson I haven't seen. I've seen John Gillette twice at conferences, and we stay in touch. John Gillette's a good guy. He's on vacation right now out west somewhere. But anyway, I keep in touch with John. We're going to do a show in Sholo, Arizona, at the end of this month, and John's going to be there, me and Travis and John. But Travis said he was going to try to get Kenny Peterson. You know, we were not friends. None of us were friends. We worked together. We did it. We went to do a job, and we were working companions. Okay, me and Travis did not get along for years. You know, he would tell you that I've called him every name in the book. You know, because he's really pissed me off on a few things. But now we have what you say a professional relationship. Okay, we're not best of buddies. You know. But his story is true, and this really happened, and this is what the whole point is to get the word out, to tell people this is true, they're really out there, you know, and that's, you know.
And it's being covered up.
Oh, yeah. I believe that's what Philip Glass was trying to do, was to cover it up. Now, that's what I believe. I believe that Philip Glass was hired by the government and to try to prove this was a hoax, you know, to come out and say, you know, oh, they're lying, you know. But, and I did 2 Februaries ago, I did a conference in Arizona, in Mesa, and John Gillette was there, and that's when me and John, that's when we first met for the first time in 30-something years. And at the end, you know, Travis lets people ask questions, and this guy came up and called me a liar about Philip Glass. And he says, well, you can't prove any of this. And I said, well, I can prove the cop came to my door. I can prove 90% of this, you know. How much do you want me to prove? You know, to me, and that kind of pissed me off, so I was going to get out of it and say, you know, I don't need this. If they don't believe this, piss on them. I don't need this. So Open Minds did a thing on me and saying that this was going to be my last interview because I was going to get out of it. And then I got so many emails that people tell me to keep talking about it, don't quit because, you know, one guy pissed you off and calls you a liar, you know, and I wanted to get off, you know, off the thing and beat his ass, but, you know, you can't do that in public. You go to jail, so... We come to find out he was a friend of Philip Glass's when Philip Glass was alive. But in Travis's first book, when Philip Glass was alive, Philip Glass is alive when Travis wrote his first book. In his first book, Travis mentions the money that he offered me. Now, if Philip Glass was alive and he said something that was a lie, Philip Glass would have came out and said, you know, this is a total lie, you know, but he never said anything. So to me, that right there proves that, you know, Philip Glass knew that, you know, this is true, that he offered me this money because it's in the first book. That, you know, Travis said he wrote this in the first book about Philip Glass offering me this money, and Philip Glass didn't say anything, you know. So, and this new guy that's a bunker, he did an article on me. If you write Steve Pierce, Fire in the Sky or UFO on the internet, you'll find his article. And he's flat out calling me a liar and all this, you know, says our story's changed. My story's never changed. My story's been the same since the get-go. You know, Hollywood might have changed Fire in the Sky and made it the way they look. I had nothing to do with that. I didn't make a dime off of that. You know, they don't even use my real name, but if you know anything about me, you know Henry Thomas, I'm the young kid. I'm the 17-year-old kid. You know, that's the reason I wrote a book. It's called Broken Silence, One Man's Journey. That's the reason I wrote a book, because to tell my side of the story. You know, because I've got all these people telling their stories, what I said and what I didn't say, and all this, and most of it's not true. It just didn't happen. A lot of the stuff in the movie didn't happen. The only part in the movie about me that really happened was I was the first one to take the polygraph test. The rest of what they talk about me, us in the restaurant, us, all this, that didn't happen. You know, and then I get emails saying, well, y'all have changed your story from Paranormal Witness, from the movie Fire in the Sky. Well, Fire in the Sky is Hollywood. That was all about money. Those people's got to make up money, and it was all about money.
Yeah.
And I didn't make a dime of it. But if you want to know the truth, what really happened, 90%, I agree, 90% of, but Paranormal Witness, it's called the Abduction. You watch that, and we're all in it. And Alan Dallas passed away a couple years ago, so he's not in it. And Dwayne Smith, he's in it. I mean, they mentioned both their names, but they're not actually in it like I am. I'm actually in it, and it shows a character of me too. And we weren't together when this was made. None of us saw each other. None of us talked before we did this. I did mine in Hollywood. And when I talked to John, John told me that he didn't see Kenny, he didn't see Mike, he didn't see Travis, he didn't see nobody. He went in there and told their story and left, So none of us saw each other. So, we didn't talk before this. We don't talk. I haven't talked to Kenny Peterson since this happened. I haven't talked to Mike Rogers since I left Snowflake back in '76. I haven't... last time I seen Alan Dallas, we was in jail together back in '77. So, but he passed away. So
yeah,
we never.
And you're right. It is a lot of the movie. When they make movies of things, it is a lot of Hollywood, and it is about making money. And if they really wanted to do justice to the story, they would have sat all you guys down and got the stories from you guys. But that's not how Hollywood rolls, as we know. I mean, people treat you like you were sitting there producing the movie or something, when they say you changed your story. I mean, it's fascinating,
Well, my story's been the same about Philip Brass, about everything else. And you can ask my wife. We've been together for 17 years. And she will tell you that my story has been the same, because finally I had to tell her the truth, what really happened, because some things were happening, and so I had to tell her everything, and then so I've seen them after this. I've seen 4 aliens at the same time.
For me, I see it as kind of a blessing. Maybe Travis wouldn't take it that way. I don't know. But for me, I think having a really good UFO sighting such as yours, I mean, yours was incredible, I think it's kind of a blessing, because you're no longer saying, are they real? They're real. Now it's a matter of who's flying them damn things. And according to Travis, I believe there was humans and some kind of 4.5 foot like grays, that the
yeah, they were grays.
So
that's what I see. That's all I've ever seen are grays. And we didn't see we saw this for like 5 minutes. It ain't like we saw it for 10 seconds and it took off. It was in our face for a long time. So we knew what we saw. And people think we're nuts, we're crazy, or we're making all this up, or they hung something up in a tree, and we saw something. That's what I've got a couple of emails too. People saying, well, maybe they just tricked you of seeing something you didn't see. That's what Philip Prass thought. He even told me. He said, I believe that you believe what you saw, but they tricked you of seeing something you didn't actually see. So
right, and some will ask, and I've had the question posed before with other guests that I've had, and people will say, well, how do you know that the government doesn't have this technology and that that they're the ones behind it? And I imagine that they probably are working with some group of these extraterrestrials, maybe. I don't have the answer for that. All I can say is it's a real phenomenon. And who knows, maybe the government is fooling around too, but they got that technology from somewhere. They didn't develop it themselves if they are. So,
I believe the government knows a lot more than they're saying.
Absolutely.
If you don't believe that about Roswell, there's something very wrong. Because I believe Roswell really happened. Especially
I believe it has too. Yeah.
Especially after they blew up that that military guy, he had a newspaper in his hand, and they could read what it said, So
yeah,
and that was years later.
Yeah.
What was that, in the 80s when they blew that up or something?
Yeah, and
you know what I'm talking about?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And the military comes out right away and says, a UFO had crashed, and then they go and change the story. I think hours later. If our military doesn't know the difference between a weather balloon and some kind of strange craft, then we're in a lot of trouble. So, they tried to cover it up right from the start.
They did. I mean, I think it was a general in Fort Worth saying that this didn't really happen or something. And the guy that came out and said it the day before said what he saw, he was mistaken that it was a weather balloon. I mean, come on. So the government knows more than they're saying. Because,
it's just like the Phoenix Lights. They said it was flares. And, people seen these things. They weren't flares.
People couldn't handle it, though. If all the people in the world started realizing, there's UFOs, people would freak out. I mean, they would lose it. The non-believers would say, oh no, how about God? How about God?
You're right. It would. I mean, I think they ran a test. The old, what was that radio announcer or the guy says that we were being attacked by UFOs. It just slipped my mind. And everybody went crazy. People started killing themselves. Was it Orswell or?
I know what you're talking about, that radio show.
Yeah.
It was all nothing but a hoax.
Yeah. I mean, look at how people reacted to that. I think that was a test.
That would happen.
I think I think so.
That would happen. Don't get me wrong, people out there. I do believe in God. I do believe in Jesus. Even when this first happened, I was raised Pentecostal in Southern Baptist. So at first I thought this was demonic too, because the way I was raised. But through the years and all the other things I've seen, there's a difference between a demon and an alien. It's two whole different things. So it's a whole different. And if anybody out there really can't believe there's more species out in this universe and this stuff, I mean that's just crazy. I mean, come on.
It is, and I have a friend who grew up in a house that was demonically possessed, and he's actually was able to photograph some of these demons, and whether people believe it or not, I mean, this is coming straight from a guy who had the terror and experience, and these grays don't look nothing like the demons he showed me. So, why do they need to come in a UFO if they're demons? Why do they need to do any of that? So, and I know everybody's got the answers to that, but let's take a call, Steve. This is a colleague of mine, Rascala. So I know he's been waiting to come on. Rascala, welcome to Late Night in the Midlands. As soon as this stupid mic lets you come on live, you'll be on. Can you hear us? There you are.
Hi. I hear you. Hello, Michael. Hello, Steve.
Oh.
Hey.
Hello.
Steve, a couple of questions, if I may, and if you don't want to answer it, it's fine.
You can ask. That doesn't mean I'm going to answer it.
Yeah. I want to ask you about strange dreams. And before you, if you want to answer that, the question, I got to get it straight. Give me a second. The answer to the question, the answer to the question. I think that's what the message was. So something about you've had strange dreams and you found yourself in places that you don't recognize, and you had questions about something, but you know what the answer is. Does any of that make any sense to you?
Yes. How do you know about this? Who are you? Are you a psychic?
Tell him who I am, Michael.
He is Rascala. He does a radio show here on the L&M radio network as well, and he does have some psychic abilities, but I don't know if that's where he got this from. Rascala,
Yeah, no, this is coming. This is all coming from upstairs right now, very strongly. And I don't know if I should say this on. Let me talk to him off the air first before I say anything. But very strongly, I have a message for you, my friend.
Well, I'll give you my phone number when we hang up, and you can call me. I don't want my phone number over the air, though.
No.
No.
We'll do that. But I just want you to know that you have the answer, and I can't word it. It's coming to me, and I can't word it. The word peace, does that mean anything to you? P-E-A-C-E, peace. The word peace.
Well, you're blowing me away.
Okay, well, we'll talk later then. I just needed to get that to him, Michael. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to get you in the middle of all this, but it was coming on very strong, and I just couldn't remain silent. I had to say something.
Because I've been having some really strange dreams lately. And plus I see an alien all the time, one that comes to me all the time. And I've seen 4 at the same time.
The reason that you're seeing them, I don't know if you want me to say this on here, but
Go ahead, say it.
You've been abducted, my friend.
Oh,
repeatedly, you've been abducted. One time was in your truck.
In my semi.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. You want to hear that story?
Yeah, I'd like to hear that.
Yeah, absolutely. And let me just say, Rascala, you're blowing my mind here.
This happens to me every once in a while, Michael. I tell everybody, listen, anybody who's listening, anybody can do what I'm doing right now. This is just a matter of, it's a matter of, do you want to learn how to play the piano? Then you go through the rigors of learning how to play the piano. Do you want to learn how to get psychic messages? Then go through the rigors of learning how to get psychic messages. I meditate. I constantly pray all day long to God. I am also a follower of Christ, by the way, Steve. I constantly talk to God all day long. There is a spiritual nuclear war going on right now. And without this information, it's really tough. It's really tough. And what I have for you, Steve, is that the word peace keeps coming to my mind. Somebody, and I can't tell you who, but somebody's telling me, just be at peace. I think that's the message for you. Be at peace. That something is troubling you tremendously, and that you don't need to be troubled about it. Be at peace about it. If that makes sense.
It makes sense. I know what you're talking about.
Okay.
Yeah, let's talk about that. I'd like to hear about that.
Yeah.
You blew me away.
Yep.
I was
so
in a
let's
big
hear
truck.
About the truck. Yeah.
All right. I was going down the highway. I was on Route 666, and well, they changed it to 491 after right before I got hurt. They changed it to 491, but Route 666 runs through the east side of Arizona, then it runs into New Mexico, and it runs up towards Shiprock on the west side of New Mexico. So it's right there on the borderline of New Mexico and Arizona, and then it runs up into Colorado. Well, I just got off Interstate 40, and I'm heading north, and I'm heading towards Shiprock. And I noticed it was about 2 o'clock in the morning, and I noticed this bright light behind me, and then it got on top of me, and I'm thinking, well, here it goes again. And so I pulled into this gas station that was closed for the night, and I got out of the truck, and you know how the semi's got to step, over the tank to get into the truck. Well, I'm standing on the step with the door open, standing up, looking up, and it's right above me. I can see this, and then I look north, and I see some headlights coming down. And I look back up, and it's right there above me. And I look back to down to the highway, looking at these lights coming, hoping they get there and see this. And the next thing I remember, it was the next morning, they were beating on my truck, telling me I had to wake up because they were fixing to open the store, and I couldn't have my big truck parked there.
And that
So
was the night.
I had like 4 hours missing.
Yeah, that was the night. Don't be troubled.
That's amazing.
Be at peace. I just feel it very strongly to tell you, don't be troubled, be at peace. Whatever has happened, and be prepared that it's probably going to happen again.
It happens all the time.
Yeah.
I woke up with a bruise on my face. I got into a physical. I thought it was a dream, and they were talking about taking me and my wife and another lady named Lori Wagner, who filmed my when I got hypnotized, my regressions, and then they started talking about taking my 13-year-old daughter, and I really got upset. I said, "No, you're not taking my daughter," And then I took a swing at one of them, and then one hit me back, and then I woke up, and I thought, "Wow, that was a freaky ass dream,"
Mm-hmm.
So I went into the bathroom, and my wife said, "What's wrong?" And then she looked at me and says, "You got a big old bruise on your face, man. What happened?" And so I looked at the mirror, and I got a bruise on my face, and I'm, whoa, man, this wasn't a dream.
Steve, is there a mark on your body, on your back, I think it is? A mark on your back?
Yeah.
You don't? Okay. Do you know what an RF meter is?
Yes.
R like Roger, F like Frank, radio frequency meter.
Yes.
I think you're tagged, and I think your daughter's tagged. And
my wife wanted me to get checked out and to see if I have one, because I know Dr. Roger Lear.
Yeah, Lear.
Yeah,
Lear.
Roger Lear.
Yeah. I need a drink. Hang on.
Okay.
And a friend of his named Steve, he has a thing that you can get inside and see if you have any of those on you.
Yeah.
But I won't do it. I don't want to know. If I have it, I don't want to know.
The thing that you get inside is called a Faraday cage. What it does is it isolates all radio frequencies to make sure that you, in fact, are transmitting. I think this is part of the piece. I think it's part of the message for you. That the part that's troubling you is you want to know, but you don't want to know. You have a degree of fear, which is understandable. I mean, don't misunderstand me. I'm not trying to pass judgment. I'm trying to give you the best information that I have available to me, and I think this is part of the solution of the peace that you want, to find out if this is there and then have it removed. Once you remove it, they can't find you again.
The problem is with these things, Rascal, is I know when I talked with Dr. Roger Lear, he'd tell me about the trouble they'd have sometimes removing these things, how they know that you're trying to get them, and they move around. They avoid you.
That's right.
Well, there was a guy that, last time I seen Roger Lear, it was at a MUFON meeting, and they did a thing for him because he was sick, and there was a guy there speaking. I can't think of the man's name, but he was speaking, and he has one, and every time they try to take it out, it moves.
Yeah.
So
you can get an RF meter and just, if you isolate yourself, like if you've got woods or somewhere where you can go, where there's not, away from the city, because there's radio frequency all through the city, it's saturated, but if you get away from the city, out in the woods, where there's very little, and then somebody can scan you, you can get a preliminary idea of what's going on. But I believe that you've been tagged, and I believe that your daughter's been tagged as well.
Another good way, too, is sit inside a mobile home, because I'll tell you what, you ever try to listen to a radio inside a mobile home?
That's what a Faraday cage is, an isolated room that typically has some type of metal that isolates the radio waves, and that's what a mobile home is. If you think about a mobile home, that's what it is. It's a metal cage.
Yeah.
It's a aluminum cage.
Now, I don't know if I'd want to know either, because once you know, then you might feel like you have to do something about it. And what do you do?
Live with it?
I
guess, yeah. You know,
the accident that Steve, the accident that you had regarding your neck, that keeps coming to my mind. Why?
Do what now?
The accident that you had regarding your neck. What is so peculiar about that?
Because I had an alien that rode home with me.
That's what it was. I keep getting the accident, the neck, the accident, the neck. Okay. And you ended up getting into an accident that night?
I got into an accident. I broke my neck. I fell off a load in 2008, and I was in Arkansas. And I got up and I shook it off and called dispatch and told them I was kind of hurt, didn't feel right, and says, well, can you make it to the next town that you're going to? And I said, well, I'll try. So the time I got to the next town I was going to, they found me a doctor to go to, and I dropped the trailer and went over to the doctor, and they said, you know, you're okay, you know, you're just kind of sore from the fall and everything, and actually I wasn't. They had to cut my neck, and the 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 vertebrae was pushing against my spinal cord, and it was fixing to snap, and I would have been paralyzed from the neck down. So my whole neck is all bolted together now. They retired me, but on the way home, I call her Paula, because I think she's a female, because she's smaller than the rest of them, and I started calling her Paula, and she rode home with me until I got back to, and she said, you know, you're alive for a reason, and they still haven't told me the reason.
I wish I could tell you the reason. I don't know. It's not coming to me. I do believe that they're protecting you, though. Absolutely.
Oh yeah, they already told me they were protecting me. They were even with me in surgery. She came and told me that, you know, my surgery, because I had 3 surgeries, and they told me that I would be okay. I would make it through the surgeries. And they want me to meet them somewhere, but everybody backed out about meeting them. So when Yvonne Smith,
if they ever want you to meet them and they want you to take someone along with you, I'd be more than glad to go. I really would.
This came out and do what?
I said I'll take the nightmares.
You take the nightmares?
I will. Yes, sir.
Well, when we're off air, I'll tell you all about it.
Okay. All right, great.
I want to talk to this gentleman. Huh?
Oh, I asked for Scala if there was anything else you'd like to add, but you would like to talk to him.
I'm just listening right now. You can put me on, you can put me back on hold. I'm just listening.
But I want to talk to you. I want him to give you my phone number so you can call me after the show.
Okay. That's fine.
All right, we'll do that.
Because you said there's something you want to tell me, but you don't want to say it over there.
Well, I already said it. It was the abduction. Or I didn't know whether you wanted people to know that or not. But it was the abduction.
Well, call me anyway. I got a few other things to tell you.
Okay.
You want to hear a bizarre? You want to hear a bizarre life? I can tell you.
I'll do it.
All right.
Good talking to you,
Steve. Thank you.
Hey, thank you for calling in.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you, Rascala. I appreciate it. That was unexpected and very interesting. Steve, let me ask you this. After all these years, if you could delete this from your life, would you?
No.
No?
No. I've had an interesting life, and I wouldn't change none of it.
I don't blame you. That's the answer I expected. You know, no matter how crazy it's been, I mean, again, you're confirmed. I mean, you can confirm to yourself, you know for a fact that we're not alone. And there's so many people who are still kicking the can on that, which I can't understand it. I mean, it's true. So now, with Fire in the Sky, I mean, how long was it after that you finally had talked to Travis, and I believe his version is that they couldn't find you or get a hold of you, and that's why your name's not used in the movie.
That's what they said, yeah, but I don't know. I don't think they could find a couple of the other ones. They said, well, we can't find them. This is not pay anybody, you know. So
I see.
And they took Dwayne Smith completely out of the movie. There's one guy missing in the movie, and then John Gillette is the one wearing the cowboy hat, but he won't say that's him because he's wearing a cowboy hat. Because everybody that watches the movie, they think I'm the one wearing the cowboy hat because I always wear a cowboy hat, and so they think that's me. But in the movie, I'm the kid. Henry Thomas plays my part in the movie. They even called me the kid.
You know, and how old were you? You were 17?
17.
That had to have been, I mean, that's a lot for a 17-year-old, you know?
Well,
I mean, you really went through a lot.
They thought I was 18, but I lied about my age to get a job. I didn't want to go to school, so my mom said either go to school or go to work, and my mom needed the money anyway, so I went to work.
I see. So if you could describe to me like that night, you know, when Travis was running out to this UFO. I mean, describe the scenario.
I didn't see that. I didn't see Travis running out there.
No?
No, he didn't run. He was like in a trance. He kind of like walked up to it, you know.
So kind of really slow paced. Yeah.
Yeah, like a walk. You know, I didn't see that. What I saw was everything started going into slow motion, and it was like he was in a trance, and he was being pulled up there, and they wanted him, and they took him.
And what was it like
Travis
inside
believes
the truck?
It was a. Do I?
I'd say, what was it like inside the truck, though? You guys had to have been going crazy.
Oh, man, we were screaming and hollering at him, trying to tell him to come back. You know, we were hollering and screaming, come back, and he only glanced back once. And the way he looked at us, you know, it was just like he wasn't there. So, Travis believes now that this was an ambulance call, that, you know, he got. They were fixing to take off, and what he got was like, you know, something coming out of a muffler. You know what I mean? So he got the aftermath, and it zapped him, and then they realized what they did, so they took him to fix him up. I don't believe that. I'm not going for that. I was there. I saw this. They wanted him. They took him. Travis is very smart. You know, he's very intelligent. So I believe they wanted him for some reason, and they took him.
Yeah, I wouldn't doubt that for a minute. And yeah, I did hear he did an interview not too long ago, and he did say that he thinks now that they accidentally zapped him and that they were just trying to fix him. And I would say if that's the case, you know, why, you know, the experiments, and things like that they might have done, and then leaving them naked when they drop them off. I mean, that wasn't very helpful.
He wasn't naked.
No?
No.
Oh, so that was part of the movie. That was
Hollywood. That movie's 90% wrong.
My God. So, okay, so, you know, there you go. There's another part of Fire in the Sky that Hollywood put their touch on, and that's amazing.
If you really want to see,
go ahead.
If you really want to see the truth, watch Paranormal Witness on the Sci-Fi Channel. It's called The Abduction, and that's about the closest one I've ever seen they ever done on us. And if you want to get a hold of me, my email is Steve STEVE .Pierce PIERCE, like you pierce your ear, Steve.Pierce @hotmail.com. So if you want to email me and talk to me, you can do that. And then I'll tell you how to get a book if you want a book. because
fantastic.
there's more in my book, more than just about Travis. It's about other things that's happened to me, about other sightings and other times that, you know, I was abducted and everything.
All right, great. Hang on for a moment, Steve. We've got to take another break, and then I want to come back and talk with you a little more and maybe get into possible what you think. And obviously, you know, it's theory, but what's your theory on what they're doing, why they're here, what it's all about? Maybe get into that a little bit. And if anybody thinks, Steve, what do you think about all that? I mean, what do you... The power systems that they use for these crafts, I mean, can you imagine? You think that's why they cover it up?
Yeah, I think they're so intelligent. Yeah, I believe the government knows more than they're letting on. I think everybody knows that, you know, so...
Yeah.
But this is true. I mean, they exist. You know, they might come through you know, they might not travel. You know, they say it takes 100 years to go so far in space. Well, I believe there's a you know, a time travel tunnel, or what do you call it? A
wormhole.
A portal. You know, a wormhole, or whatever you want to call them. You know, they're coming through, and that's what I believe. You know, like like Skinwalker Ranch. I believe that there you know, there's something going on there that they're coming through. You know, so... Yeah,
I believe so, too. And, you know, they have obviously figured out a way, and maybe even bending time somehow, time and space, you know, like you would a piece of paper, you know. I don't know, but they've obviously got the technology. I've had people who swear up and down there's bases on the moon and even bases on Mars, and, I really wouldn't doubt it. I don't know if you've heard of them, but... one gentleman by the name of Andrew Bashago who claims that he was part of a secret space program where they were able to teleport. They had teleportation. And, you know, I can't prove it, but, again, I wouldn't doubt it. And where are they getting this technology? Probably from our alien friends, I would guess. And, you know, the problem I have with that is if they are getting it from the ETs, why are the ETs giving this technology to the wrong people? You know.
Well, I believe they're finding crashes and getting their information from the, you know, like from Roswell and stuff like that, and that's what I believe. But they're out there, and no matter how they're getting here, they're here. You know,
absolutely.
So,
well, getting back to your story. Oh, go ahead. I was going to say, getting back to your story a little bit, you know, I'm curious, how did it go down when you guys went and had to report this to the police? I mean, who was going in? I mean, did you guys draw straws or something as to who was going to talk to the police about this? Because it had to be really tough to go in there and tell them what happened.
You mean the night that it happened?
Yeah.
Kenny Peterson is the one who decided to go ahead and call because Mike was still upset and I really didn't want to call. I wanted to go home, so. But Kenny Peterson was one who stuck with it. You know, so.
Yeah. So now, you had to have been reading a lot of the stories as they came out and reading what was being said. And, you know, when this was going down, even within them 5 days, I mean, how did that go down? I mean, was that part of the reason you wanted to hide because of the publicity that was coming with this? I mean, it had to be tough at 17 years old, no less.
Well, everybody thought we killed him, so, you know, I didn't want to get in front of a camera and, did you kill Travis? You know, so I hid from him, and I was kind of shy to get in front of a camera anyway. You know, Alan Dallas and Travis's brother. Travis had a brother that I think he passed away. I think it was the one that passed away just shortly. But he had a brother that would see a camera, and he would knock people over just to get to the camera, you know. I was the opposite. When I saw a camera, I went the opposite direction. And Alan Dallas was the same way. He loved to get in front of the camera. Well, I didn't like that. I didn't like that, you know, I didn't like people asking me questions. I didn't like them, you know, because they thought we were crazy and or murderers, you know, and I just didn't like it. And I did one interview, and I told you about that, and after they came out calling me a liar, I didn't want to do no more interviews. I mean, if they're going to do an interview and make me look like I'm a lion, and then put stuff in there that I didn't say, you know, so...
Right.
You know, it took me 35 years to do an interview.
Now, has anybody in your family, and I'll ask you this because some research shows that people who have the experiences like you've had, that it might go back through other family members. Has anyone else in your family ever spoke of these kind of things happening to them? Even
yes, I have an uncle that and my mom denies it. She says it was, you know, she in her head that UFOs don't exist. But yeah, I have some family members that saw them. And then before this happened, before I saw Travis get zapped, hey, that was awesome. Seeing Travis getting zapped, that was the coolest thing I've ever seen, except my daughter being born. That was the coolest. But seeing Travis getting zapped was the coolest thing I've ever seen in my life. But before this happened, we lived outside of Snowflake, and there was no electricity out there at the time, and no running water. You had to go to the windmill to take a shower and stuff, you know, and you had to get firewood to get your, you know, the stove going and stuff. So we were living the Daniel Boone life for the summer out in a cabin, and at nighttime we could go out back and watch UFOs just flying around. At the time we didn't know what they were, but they would go straight and then make a weird turn, go straight up and sideways and make all these weird turns like a plane couldn't do, and we would sit there and watch a light show at nighttime, me and my brother, and that's when I first, you know, saw them. At the time I didn't know what we were looking at. And then we had these mutilated cows showing up, and before Travis got zapped, they were finding these cows that were mutilated and stuff at the same time, and
yeah.
Me and my brother.
Now what's
me
up
and my
with
brother,
that?
Huh?
Yeah, I'll finish your story, but then what's up with these cattle mutilations? That's another thing that doesn't make me feel too comfortable about these creatures.
Well, me and my brother went out and looked for one, and we found one day, and all the blood was gone, and there was a burnt spot on the butt, and all the blood was gone. We thought that was kind of weird, and there was no tracks and no nothing around, no tire marks, no nothing, you know, and we kind of looked to see if it was brushed away or something, but there was no tracks, and the cow was just, you know, the blood was all gone, and there was a burn mark on the back of the leg, and we thought that was kind of weird. So they were strange things happening before Travis got zapped, and then there was strange things happening after, and there's been strange things happening in my life before and after, and still strange things happening.
Oh, I bet. Now, how about any of the other men in the crew? Have they ever talked about anything like this going on before Travis got zapped, or did you guys really not talk about that kind of thing? I didn't hang out with these guys, so I really can't. Right.
I really can't. John said he thought he saw one a couple of weeks ago, and he still lives up there by the Snowflake, so he thought he saw one coming home from work. He works late. He gets home about 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, and he thought he saw one flying around a couple of weeks ago.
That's fantastic. You know, I mean, it really is. It's crazy how, like, I mean, I talk to so many people who go through this type of thing, and then you find that it's like a genetics thing. Like it's happened to family members in the past. Not fantastic, but fascinating is what I meant to say. And you got to wonder if they don't find maybe a bloodline that is good for whatever they're trying to accomplish, and they stick with that family. I don't know. I mean, again, speculation, but I think it's fascinating when people who have these experiences, they look back and they find, hey, yeah, that's right, Aunt so-and-so used to tell us a story about that, but we thought she was crazy. And then it happens to you, and it's like, okay, Aunt so-and-so is not so crazy anymore. But so that's why I asked. I think
people think you're crazy, that's for sure.
Well, I sure don't. Steve, last but not least, the odds, as you mentioned earlier, the odds of all of you passing a test, the same test, on the same issue, I think at the time was something like 1,000,000 to 1, which would be even higher odds now, I would guess. I mean, what is the odds of that? I mean, that right there, that's the part of the story that I like to slam people with when they try to say, well, it was a lie. It's like, you're not going to get a crew of guys, 5, 6 guys, who take the same lie detector test and are able to pass it, and more than once, too. Didn't some of you guys took more than one test, right? I believe Travis took a couple.
I think Travis has taken like 4 of them already. But he took one on a game show, and they made it look like he flunked it. But the game show was rigged, so you can't really count that one. But he did one in New Mexico, and he did it from a guy that, the top polygraph guy in New Mexico, and he passed it. And then the guy that did our polygraph test, he did one too, and he even said on that show we was on, Paranormal Witness, he even said on there that you can't beat me at my own game. There's no way that 5 of these guys are going to pass, my polygraph test and pass it, because this is, they can't beat me at my own game. So he believes us. He believes we saw something.
Oh, yeah. I would have liked to have seen the look on all their faces when they were told, hey, these guys passed. I mean, even the cops who were out to, nab you guys for murder, I wonder what they had to have been thinking inside their heads when they heard that, hey, all these guys passed. I mean, they had to go home and sit there with a lot of questions in their head.
He still can't believe he passed it.
Well, Steve, what would you like to finish with tonight? What would you like to get out there? And we've got about another 10 minutes. So whatever you'd like to throw out there, go ahead. And I do want to say I appreciate so much you taking the time out to join me on the show tonight. To me, it's an honor. I have been interested in the UFO phenomenon my whole life, and to talk to somebody who I honestly believe with all my heart is telling the truth, it really makes me feel good about tonight's show, so thank you.
Hey, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. If you want to read my book, just give me an email at steve.pierce@hotmail.com, and I'll tell you how to get a book. We'll be in Roswell, New Mexico this weekend at the festival. I'll be in Sholo, Arizona at the end of the month on the 29th. You can find that on Travis Walton's website. And come and see us.
Okay.
And keep looking up. You might see one.
Yeah, absolutely. I finish every show with keep your eyes posted to the sky, because you never know what you might see. And I really mean it. I don't just say it. People need to look up, or you're never going to see them. Steve, thank you so much, and you're welcome to come on this show anytime. And I thank you so much for taking the time out. And I also want to thank Kelly.
I'll come back on when my book's my book's done. I got to go get them tomorrow. I paid for myself. I didn't go through a publisher, so and the book's done. I got to go pick them up tomorrow. But once my book starts selling, I'll come back on, and I will tell you all about all the things I've seen and gone through. And that will blow you away, because it still blows me away. And my daughter,
that's awesome.
And my 13-year-old daughter, she can talk to dead people, and they can talk to her back, and she sees them. And they come to her. And she's even seen, even aliens have came to her.
Well,
so
that is fascinating. Yeah, I'm looking forward to talking to you again, Steve. I really am. So keep in touch, and when you're ready, just give me a word, and I'll definitely make room for you.
Well, thank you for having me. Y'all have a good week, a good night and a good evening, and be safe and keep looking up, and you'll see them.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for taking the time. All right, everyone. That's Steve Pierce. His book is Broken Silence.
So he kind of like hits the floorboard, and he gets back up, and then I scoot over all the way next to the window, and I get a real close view, and we turn around this curve, and there it is. It's just hovering in the air in this clearing, and it's right below the tree lines. It's close enough where you could throw a rock at it and hit it, and it's just hovering there, and it's not moving. This thing is beautiful. It was solid white, and you could see the window frames coming down from it. And then there's a frame like in the middle of it. It was like two cake pans on top of each other, but it was solid white. I mean, it was a glowing white. And some reason Mike stops, and Travis gets out, and to me it looks like he was like in a trance when he got out, and like he was hypnotized or something. And because to me it didn't look like it was Travis. And Travis starts walking up to it like cannon cord, like sideways up to it, not straight up, but in an angle. And he gets so far from it, and he's not underneath it like it shows in the movie dancing. That's not true. But anyway, everybody's hollering to come back, and then he kind of like ducks down in between some trees, and when he stands back up, and he only looked back once, and the way he looked. When he looked back, I know his eyes were different. It just is like, and so this thing, he stands back up, and it starts rocking back and forth, going beep, 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 and then there was this high pitching noise to it, and then this bluish green light came out and zapped him in the chest, and he falls back he's in the air, and he goes back in the air. It's not like in the movie it picks him up and then throws him. It's more like it hits him, and he flies back about 15 feet, and he hits the ground. And as soon as he hits the ground, I say they got him. As soon as I said they got him, Mike takes off, and for a second there, I didn't know Mike took off until I hit my head on the door, on the door, because it was bouncing and stuff. And when we get down the road, and Kenny Peterson and Mike gets him to stop, and we stop, and we get out, and everybody's all, let's just go. Some of us wanted to go, and Kenny Peterson and John Gillette were saying that, we have to go back and look for him. We got to turn around and go back and look for him, and a couple of guys wanted to know, that should we go get help and come back and look for him? Or what should we do? And as we was getting out, we saw a white light take off into the sky, so we thought it was gone. And so, and then someone said it looked like he was disintegrated, and I said, no, I seen him hit the ground. His body is there. I seen him hit the ground. So we all get in the pickup, and in the movie it shows that Mike went back by himself. That's not true. We all got back in the pickup because you wasn't going to leave us out there by ourselves. And there's no way one of us would have went back by ourselves to look for him. And everybody was going to stick with that pickup no matter where it went. Where that pickup went is where we went. Because I was staying with that pickup until I got home. And And that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to go home. I wanted to go back to Snowflake and see the city lights, you know, or the town lights. And because I was only a kid. I was 17 years old. And so Henry Thomas plays my part in the movie. And if you ever watched the sci-fi Paranormal Witness, they have done the best job. If you ever watch that, the first one was an hour and a half long, and the after that was an hour and a half, but because it's only an hour show. But they done the best one I've seen so far. I will go 90% of that's right, you know. So we turned around and we went back and looked for him, and we couldn't find him. And we had one flashlight, and we're looking around, and I'm thinking we're not in the right spot, and so I'm looking for tracks where the pickup took off. And then I found the tracks, and I said, well, I guess we're in the right place. And we looked and looked, and we couldn't find him. Now we're deciding what to do. Should we go home, go back to town, and get some friends of ours to come back out and look for him? And Kenny Peterson and John Gillette, they wanted to call the cops, and me and Alan Dallas, we were against it because, you know, the ones in the back seat were the outlaws. We were the non-Mormons in town, and we lived in a Mormon community, and they didn't like us anyway. So we went into town, and Mike, when we was looking for him, he really got upset, and he fell to his knees and said, you know, I left my best friend behind. Look what I've done, you know. And he was really upset. So when we got back into town, he was still upset. So Kenny Peterson called the sheriff's department. We pulled into a parking lot, and there was 3 telephone booths in the parking lot. So I think there was 3 or 2 or something like that. But Kenny Peterson called the sheriff's department and told the sheriff's department we had a missing persons. He didn't tell him the whole story until Gillespie got out there. And then when Gillespie got out there, everybody started telling the story what happened and stuff. And he's looking around for beer cans and stuff. He thinks this is all nothing but a hoax, and he still does. If you watch the sci-fi, the Paranormal Witness, he's on there too, and he still believes to today that it was nothing but a hoax. And so we tell him what happened, and he says, well, Mike has to go back because he's the crew boss, and I want 2 other guys to go back, and the other 3 can go home. So Alan Dallas and Kenny Peterson went back to look for him, and me, John Gillette, and Dwayne Smith, we went home. And I finally got to go home. So they went out and looked for him, and they couldn't find him. He was still missing. And so the next morning, they got a posse, like an 80-man, 100-man posse out there looking for him. And they went to everybody's house to pick him up to go out there. And when my mom was talking to these people out front, I snuck out the back door and I hid all day at a girlfriend's house because I figured, we was going to get out there and they was going to find Travis dead. And there's no way you were going to be able to run from 100 cops. You're surrounded. Because John Gillette told me that when he got out there, they had a cop by each one of them. A cop stayed by each one of them. They were telling him, you might as well confess, tell us what really happened because we're going to find this body out here. And so they didn't find the body, and that I stayed hid all day at a girlfriend's house, and her mom came home from work and said that I'm in the bedroom, and she says that you got to stay away from that Pierce boy. The whole town thinks that they killed Travis, and Travis's body's out there somewhere. So she left to work, and she still let me stay the rest of the day until her mom came home. Then I stayed hid until it got dark because. But by this time, there was so many news reporters looking to get a story. They within that 5 days, there were so many people up there that it doubled the town. And
wow.
Yes, it was bad. And they were beating on my door, looking through my windows, taking pictures, and. I never got a piece of sleep. I didn't get hardly no sleep for 5 days. even after that, it was hard to get, you know, because, well, anyway, so all that week, you know, the whole town thinks we killed him, and then I seen one of the city cops, and he caught me and put me in the back of his car and told me, you know, you might as well confess. We don't think you killed him, but we think you're covering it up. We don't know why you're covering it up, but in Arizona, we don't need a body, and if you're involved in this, you're just as guilty as the person who killed Travis. So if I was you, I would confess and tell us what really happened, and it would be easier on you. Well, I told him, I said, well, you know, it's true. What we were telling you is true. So he lets me out of the cop car, and he rolls down the window and says, well, when you're ready to tell the truth, call me, and, you know, and I'll help you out. And so he left, and so he left, and then he started talking about taking a polygraph test, and so I didn't want to take a polygraph test. I didn't like cops, and I'm a long haul truck driver, and I'm still not too friendly with them. You know, I just say yes sir, no sir, and go down the road. You know, and so Alan Dallas's mom was telling us that you know, they're going to set this up and make us all look like we're guilty. You know, so they set the polygraph test up, and I didn't want to take the polygraph test. So the morning of the polygraph test, I snuck out the back door again, and they were waiting on me, and they put me in my mom's car, and my mom took me to the Holbrook where the sheriff's department was at, and my mom was, you know, she had to take me. I was a minor, and plus she was kind of curious if we killed Travis or not, you know.
Yeah.
So we get there, and there's all kinds of news reporters there. There was just tons of them, cameras everywhere, and so they get us inside the office, and the guy taking the polygraph test, he comes out there, and he, you know, tells him who he is and everything, and well, thank you for having me.
Oh, absolutely. You know, I'll tell you, I've been talking about this a lot the last couple of weeks, and you know, I told everybody how you've had. It seems like the last 4 shows you attempted to be on, something happened. So
yeah, something weird happened.
Tonight. Yeah. So how you doing tonight, Steve?
Oh, pretty good. I guess it's UFO day, so we got through tonight, huh?
That's right. Steve, I guess let me start out with, I'll ask you, what has life been like since that night in 1975 when you and the others had your lives, I would guess, changed forever? What has it been like since then?
I've been asked that question before, and it's been my whole life, so I really can't tell you with any difference, because I was 17 when it happened, and I've seen UFOs before this happened, so it's been my whole life. I've tried to get out of it a few times, but they seem like this to drag me right back in, so
yeah.
I went a long time without talking about it. I went 35 years without talking to Travis, and I went over the road, and I had some things that happened to me over the road, and when I broke my neck, that's when they wanted me to get back into it and started talking to my wife and my kid, and they think this is important for me to get back in it and start talking about it. So I got back in it a couple years ago and got a hold of Travis, and besides, you know, I want my side of the story told in too, because, you know, I've read these articles that they've written years ago, and they're wrong. You know, they said they talked to me. I only done one interview 35 years ago, and it was on July the 7th, 1976. It was the day my son was born, and we was at the hospital when National Star had me trapped, and I couldn't get outside because I usually ran and hid, and they couldn't catch me. I got good at hiding, and they had all the doors trapped, and I couldn't get away. So I did an interview, and then the next month when it came out, it made us look like we were lying. So I never did another interview for 35 years. But if you don't get out and talk about it and tell your side of the story, they will make things up and put things in there. Yeah, they said you said this and said that, you know. So if you don't get out there and talk about it, they will put words in your mouth.
Oh, absolutely. If you don't tell your story, then somebody else is going to tell it with their twist. That's for sure. And I agree with your family. It is important. I mean, you had an experience that not very many people, well, a lot of people, have had, I guess. But when you look at the whole population as a whole, not many people have experienced it. And, I'll tell you, I'm glad you're out talking.
There's nobody but 6 people who's ever seen what we saw. Nobody's ever seen what we saw. Even Travis didn't see that coming. I don't believe Travis saw it coming.
Hey, Steve, if you wouldn't mind, fill us in on your account of what happened that day. I mean, right from the start, you get up for work, you head out. You couldn't have possibly thought your day would end the way it did.
Well, I was working with Mike Rogers. We was trimming trees for the forest department and for fire protection. And we were behind on the contract because my uncle and cousin and another guy just quit. So we were short-handed. And that day that we went out, John Gillette and Dwayne Smith, they just hired on a couple of days before, so we was trying to work some overtime to get caught up because we only got paid if we only got so much section done from the forest department. And that morning, it was like a regular day. I went to work, and Alan Dallas and Travis Walton were fighting again, like always, and were arguing. And everybody was doing this kung fu fighting back then. It was a big thing back then, and I thought it was kind of funny. But Alan Dallas tried to do a roundhouse, and because him and Travis was into it, and Alan Dallas tried to do a roundhouse, and he fell on his butt and never touched Travis, and we all laughed about it, and he got kind of mad, and Mike kind of broke it up and said, just get in the truck and let's go. So we all got in the truck, and we took off, and we was working for the day, and then when during that day that Alan Dallas had cut a tree. What I did was I stacked the branches into piles so the forest department can burn it, safety burn. And so I was dragging some logs down and some trees down, and now you always got to look up because trees are falling. And I looked up and I noticed that Alan Dallas had cut down a tree, and it landed real back, real close to Travis. And I figured, cool, another fight's going to start, And then I think Mike hollered out lunch or something like that, and Travis just gave him a dirty look, and nothing really happened out of it. And so we took a lunch, and then we all loaded up for the day, and it was getting dark, so we had to quit because when it get dark out in the woods, it's dark. And so we loaded up and was in a 2-seated pickup truck, and Travis was on the shotgun side, and Kenny Peterson was in the middle, and then Mike Rogers was driving, and then behind in the back seat was Alan Dallas was next to the window behind Travis and me, and then John Gillette and Dwayne Smith was on the far left behind Mike, and so we started taking off, and we noticed this bright light over to the right of us, and we couldn't, figure out what it was. And someone said, looks like the moon, and then one of the other guys said that, the moon's over there, there's the moon. And then we got a little bit closer, and Alan Dallas said, looks like a spaceship, and